Hi there. Welcome to Tractormonkey's shop. Today, I thought I'd talk a little bit more about table saws. Um, the winter's over. The weather's warming up. It's time to get to doing some woodworking. Um, I've had the cover over it all winter long, and if you've seen my video on maintaining your table saw over the winter, you can see there's not a speck of rust on it. Now it's still got the waxy film of the Bow Shield T9 on it. This is this product here, Bow Shield T9. It's a rust and corrosion inhibitor. I'm not affiliated with this company. They don't know me from Adam. Same way with any other product I use. I don't have any sponsors. Don't nobody know me. So anyways, the first thing you want to do to get it started is, of course, clean off the old wax and then wax it down with some paste wax. You don't want to put the Bow Shield back on it. That's just for wintertime protection. You want to use some paste wax after you get it cleaned off. So let's get this cleaned off. Sure, you don't want to watch that, but I'll show a little bit of it. You can get a rag or something and wipe. I go ahead and just spray it down with some WD-40, and that'll cut it pretty fast, so you don't have to spend all day rubbing. And I take a Scotch-Brite pad, just kind of lightly run over it. And if you did have any surface rust, just go ahead and clean that off while you're at it. This is basically the same process as before. It's just we're going to skip the T9. Okay, now we can come with some paper towels, and that'll take that wax right off pretty quick. I hope you can hear me a little better than normal. The case that the GoPro sits in is supposed to be like a waterproof case. The sound doesn't go through it. I drilled some holes where the microphones are at. I'm hoping that helped. So if you can hear me, maybe it did. If you can't hear me, I guess it didn't. And since this is a very low budget production, I don't have any fancy recording equipment with external mics and all that. I make zero on this channel since they changed the requirements to 1,000 subscribers, which I probably never have. So I'm not going to spend a lot of money on cameras and mics and all that. I can spend it on something else. Wipe the excess off. It's all clean. You don't want to leave it like this because it will rust in a minute. If you've got a cast iron surface, so I'm going to let that dry a minute, then I'm going to put some wax on it. Okay, I'm back. It's should be dry now. Now I'm going to put some paste wax on. What I use is this Johnson's paste wax, made for wood floors. Now there's a debate whether or not it's a good idea to use car wax, because car wax contains silicone, and silicone and wood doesn't mix. And if you get your wood impregnated with a silicone type wax, then if you do any staining or varnishing or something, then you're going to see where it hasn't soaked into the wood. But there's a lot of guys that say it's perfectly fine to use car wax as long as you buff it all out and you don't leave any residue anywhere to get on the wood, which is probably correct. It's just, I prefer to use this, and then I don't have to worry about it. So just spread it on, wax it like you're waxing a car. Sit down in the miter slot groove. And the reason you do this is two reasons. One reason is you don't want your cast iron to rust, but the other reason is you want a nice slick surface so your wood will glide over it easy. You don't want any friction while you're running wood through the saw, because naturally it just makes sense. So it doesn't matter what kind of table saw you have. If you've got a contractor's saw that's just got an aluminum top, still wax it. Same principle. An aluminum top's not going to rust, but you still want it slick. Want it nice and polished. Okay, we're going to let that dry for a minute. Okay, got it all waxed up. Got it nice and slick. If your wood won't do this, then you need to keep waxing. Because see how slick that is? That's what you want. You just want it to glide over it. Okay, now that we got that, next thing you want to do is clean it up, especially underneath. Now this is going to be true with any table saw, whether you've got a cabinet saw, an open contractor saw. You're going to get dust, wood dust everywhere. Doesn't matter how clean you are, how much of a good vacuum system you got to for dust collection. It's still going to accumulate in here. So what I like to do is, if I can find what I did with it, get a paintbrush. Get a paintbrush, and I can't do it because I'm holding the camera, but get your shop vac and your paintbrush and suck up the dust while you're cleaning it off. You want to get in there where your gears are at. First, make sure your belt looks good. Go through it, get all that dust out. Give it a good vacuuming. I'm not gonna sit here all day doing this. You know what I'm talking about. On your gears there, you don't want to put a lot of grease there because it's just gonna cake up with sawdust. Gonna could try using a little bit of dry lube on here, and just enough. I mean, there's no high-speed operation going on there. You just want it nice and smooth when you're operating the controls. Of course, I can't close this and hold the camera at the same time. Okay, the other thing is you want to give your table saw a tune-up, and by that I mean an alignment. Now this is very important if you want a good quality and safe cut. Everything has to be in aligned, or in alignment, especially if you got a brand new saw. If you got a brand new saw, then you've probably got a manual with it, and the manual is going to tell you how to do your alignment. If you bought a used saw or something, you may not have a manual. First, when you're doing an alignment, you got to have a reference point. Anything that you're doing an adjustment on, you need a reference to start. So your reference are the miter slots. Okay, now this is assuming that the factory did a good job on the tabletop and got it, exactly square. Of course, there's nothing you can do about that. But assuming everything's good there, that's your starting point, your miter slot. Okay, and one tool that you'll need, or a tool that does the same thing, is an adjustable combination square. They make real fancy tools. You can get a tool to sit in there, with a micrometer and a dial, I mean, get super accurate. This works good enough for me. So what you do is you raise your blade all the way up, loosen it first. Okay, and you want to make sure that it's 90 degrees, but you want to, if you notice, the teeth are sort of alternating. This is a point on one side and a point. Well, pick a tooth and use that same measurement on the other side. I'm going to pick one where the point is facing to the left. Take your square, that is if you can get the blade to stay right where you want it. There. Okay, take the combination square, put it in the miter slot so it's sitting against it, and you adjust this in and out so it's just touching. I don't know if you can see it, but it's just barely touching that tooth. Okay, now run it to the other end, and there'll be another tooth over there, and you can see there's no gap, so that's lined perfectly. Now if you had a gap on one side, like if you took the measurement here and you went back here and there's a gap, then that means the blade is pointing to the left a little bit and it needs to come back this way. There's a couple of ways to do that depending on what kind of table saw you have. With cabinet saws, with a full-size premium style cabinet saw, the what they call the trunnion, the mechanism for the blade, is mounted to the cabinet, and with a contractor style saw, smaller saws that either sit on a tabletop or on legs, with open underneath, they're usually mounted underneath the table. So if you have a cabinet saw like this, where the trunnions and everything are mounted to the cabinet, then you have to adjust the tabletop back and forth in order to get that into an alignment. And the way you do that is there's 4 screws on each corner of the table. Well, you can't see it here. There's one there. There's one there, and then there's 2 on the other side, just like this. You have to loosen those up, and it's best to do that when you're first putting the table saw together without all the guides here and the extension tables and all that, because it just makes it easier to move that table without moving the cabinet, because it can be a little tricky. The cabinet's got to stay still, and you're kind of juggling the top down, and when you get it just right, you tighten those bolts back up, and that's your alignment for that. If you've got a contractor style saw where the mechanism is mounted underneath the actual tabletop, you'll normally see 2 screws right about there somewheres. Could be on top of the table, could be hidden, and you loosen those up, and the whole works to sort of pivot back and forth, and then you'll get it right where you want, and then you'll tighten those down. So that's basically how you do that. Okay, once you get that measurement, within tolerance, then you've got to adjust your fence. And you can use the same method, only in reverse. You can move your fence over until it's just touching. Tighten it up. It's gonna move a little bit when you tighten it up. And let's get the blade out of the way. Okay, then you check it here, run it down, and you can see it's pretty right on the money. There's no, now if there was a gap there, then if your fence has an adjustment, if you have a small contractor's style saw, there may not be an adjustment. It just may be built in. You know, whatever you got is what you got. Sometimes you may be able to, before you make a cut, if your fence has got some play in it, you might be able to use a clamp or something on the other end, and then get it, you know, just right, and then clamp that other end down. So then you have 2 ends clamped, and that'll give you a nice straight cut. But let's say I needed to adjust that. There's adjustment screws. There's 4 adjustment screws. You got these screws here, but that's for checking to see if the face is 90 degrees to the table. If it's not 90 degrees to the table, then you can use these screws to raise or lower one end to get it, you know, perfectly straight up and down. The adjustments for the front are right there. Those set screws on either side, and you can see There's a pad here. So when you tighten it down, you can either move those in or out to give you a completely straight edge. You also want to wax your rail for your fence. That way it glides nice and easy across. Let's see, what else can I think of here? After you check for, get you a right angle and check for, see if that's square. Of course, you got to watch these combination squares. They can wobble on you. It's best if you got a drafting style triangle. They're more accurate. You can put up there and make sure that's 90 degrees. Once you've checked that, you can look down here on your wheel here, see if it reads exactly 0. If it doesn't, on this one here, there's a screw back here, and you can adjust that pointer, get it exactly, and then you can check it at 0 and 45, and split the difference a little bit. But if you want to make a super accurate cut, don't rely on this. Get you some sort of a angle checking square so it's exactly right on the money. Same way with your fence here. You've got a built-in tape measure here, and it comes in pretty handy. You can make slight adjustments right here. Get you a ruler, measure exactly 6 inches from the edge of the blade there, and if this is off, got some adjustment there you can do. So I guess that's it. If you have any questions or comments, let me know. Thanks for watching. Oh, one more thing. I would highly recommend that you watch the new Yankee Workshop reruns. Season 19, episode 8. There's a 2-part series called Table Saw 101, and Norm Abram got a lot of good information, as well as numerous other YouTube videos that can do a really fantastic job of explaining better than I can, better production value and everything. But anyways, thanks for watching.